Darius Ellison, a seasoned Black Navy SEAL veteran, opens the door of his home in Norfolk and finds Officer Grant Harlan standing there with his weapon already drawn. A neighbor's call reporting a suspicious person has brought this hostile officer to his doorstep. One misinterpreted movement, and 3 shots later, Darius lies bleeding out on the threshold of his own house. As consciousness slips away, he activates the emergency beacon from his gear. The specialized device, never before used on domestic soil, will summon the most dangerous men in America to a quiet residential neighborhood in Virginia. Commander Cole Harrington receives the emergency signal from Darius. During a classified briefing at the naval station in Norfolk, he gathers the available members of his team, Lieutenant Mateo Rojas, Chief Theo Lang, Petty Officer Caleb Voss, and Officer First Class Blake Torin, and explains that one of their own has been shot by the police. Footage from the smart doorbell security system reveals Harlan's aggression and the unprovoked shooting. The team discovers that Harlan belongs to a secret police faction known as the Guardians, with known ties to white supremacism. The operators establish an improvised command center in an unmarked van parked outside the hospital where Darius fights for his life. They learn that Harlan carries a history of excessive force complaints against black civilians, all dismissed by his district captain, Victor Langford. When they attempt to access the official police records, they encounter blocks from higher command, suggesting the corruption reaches far beyond the local department. Commander Cole Harrington was in the middle of a briefing on emerging threats in the Horn of Africa when his secure phone vibrated with the distinctive pattern reserved solely for team emergencies. The interruption was unusual enough that the 4-star admiral leading the meeting stopped mid-sentence. Harrington excused himself with the practiced ease that had allowed him to navigate both military and political waters throughout his career. Outside the secure room, he verified the source of the signal and felt his stomach tighten. Darius Ellison, one of the most disciplined and steady operators he had ever commanded, had activated his emergency beacon from a residential address in Norfolk. Harrington immediately contacted the 4 team members assigned to the area. They gathered swiftly in an unmarked tactical van parked several blocks from the naval station. Inside the mobile command center, Harrington shared the limited information he possessed. Darius Ellison, a decorated SEAL veteran, had activated an emergency beacon from the address of his home. Early reports from the police scanner indicated an officer-involved shooting at that location. Radio traffic from the officers suggested a black suspect had been transported to Mercy General Hospital with multiple gunshot wounds. The team's faces hardened when Harrington opened the security recordings from the doorbell system, accessed through their classified network. The camera showed Officer Grant Harlan approaching the front door, weapon already drawn, despite responding to what dispatch had logged as a routine wellness check. Darius appeared in the doorway with his hands visible, his expression shifting from confusion to alarm as he registered the gun pointed at him. There was an exchange of words, though the audio was not clear enough to distinguish them. When Darius adjusted his posture slightly, Harlan fired 3 times into the center of his torso. As Darius fell, the officer made no attempt to render medical aid. Instead, he spoke into his radio while keeping his weapon trained on the wounded man. Chief Theo Lang, their intelligence specialist, searched for information on Harlan across multiple databases. His findings sent a chill through the van. Grant Harlan was a multi-year veteran of the Norfolk Police Department with 6 complaints of excessive force, all involving black civilians, all dismissed without consequence. More troubling still, Harlan appeared in several classified intelligence reports flagged for ties to a group called the Guardians, a network of law enforcement officers with connections to white nationalist organizations. Caleb Voss, whose fair complexion and conventional appearance made him the ideal infiltrator for civilian environments, headed immediately to Mercy General to establish visual contact with Darius. Meanwhile, Mateo Rojas attempted to access the official incident records but found himself blocked by administrative passwords that should never apply to a standard officer-involved shooting. Someone with considerable authority wanted that information contained. Blake Torin established surveillance on the station where Harlan worked. As Lang dug deeper into the officer's background, his discoveries painted an increasingly disturbing picture. Captain Victor Langford, Harlan's commanding officer, had personally dismissed every complaint filed against him and appeared in photographs from private events alongside several recognized figures of white supremacism. What had first seemed a tragic case of police racism was revealing itself as something potentially more organized and far-reaching. When Voss reported that Darius was in surgery with guards posted outside his room who did not follow standard protective protocols, the team understood they were not merely dealing with the aftermath of a shooting. They were racing against a coordinated effort to ensure Darius Ellison would not survive long enough to tell his side of the story. While Darius underwent emergency surgery, the team infiltrated the digital systems of the Norfolk Police Department. They uncovered a pattern of targeted harassment against black residents of Darius's neighborhood, orchestrated by Captain Langford and his inner circle. When Voss, the white member of the team, approached the hospital's administrative office posing as Darius's brother-in-law, he overheard two officers discussing plans to finish the job before Darius regained consciousness. At the same time, Rojas and Lang tracked Harlan to a private shooting club where he met with Langford and several other officers. Using directional microphones, they recorded an incriminating conversation about cleaning up the neighborhood and references to previous neutralizations of black residents. The team realized they were not facing individual racist officers, but a coordinated hate group operating under the authority of the badge. As they prepared to move Darius to a secure location, hospital security cameras showed three armed men dressed in maintenance uniforms entering through a service door and heading toward the floor where Darius lay. Lang had established a secure digital intrusion into the Norfolk Police Department's internal network, navigating its outdated cybersecurity measures with precision. What began as a mission to gather information on the shooting quickly evolved into something far more disturbing. As patterns emerged from the data, Lang discovered that over the preceding period, patrol schedules had been systematically adjusted to concentrate certain officers in Darius's neighborhood, Oakwood Heights, a historically black community that had recently seen an influx of black professional families. These officers, all connected to Captain Langford through shift assignments, personal communications, or financial transactions, had issued an unusually high number of citations, conducted questionable searches, and made arrests of black residents for minor infractions that were consistently dismissed once they reached the judicial system. The goal was not prosecution, but harassment. A deeper examination revealed selective enforcement against specific residents, black business owners in Oakwood Heights, community organizers, and successful professionals who had recently moved into the neighborhood. Darius, with his military record and unblemished reputation, appeared on a list titled Community Influences, accompanied by notes about his volunteer work with at-risk youth and his recent purchase of 3 rental properties offered below market value to single-parent families. While Lang continued his digital reconnaissance, Voss blended effortlessly into the hospital environment, dressed in casual office attire with a visitor badge clipped to his shirt pocket. He projected the concerned yet composed demeanor of a relative as he approached the administrative desk to inquire about his brother-in-law. The receptionist, a middle-aged white woman, responded with appropriate sympathy, offering general information about visitation policies for intensive care patients. As Voss thanked her and moved toward the waiting area, he overheard 2 uniformed officers speaking quietly near the coffee machine. Officer Major was telling his younger partner that he had received a call from Captain Langford. They needed to make certain the suspect did not regain consciousness long enough to give a statement. If the doctors managed to stabilize him, there were ways to ensure complications arose. The casual tone with which they discussed what amounted to premeditated murder chilled Voss more than any battlefield threat. He discreetly photographed both officers with his specially modified phone before heading to the ICU waiting area to maintain his cover. Rojas and Lang tracked Officer Harlan's personal vehicle to Patriots Range, an exclusive members-only shooting facility located outside Norfolk. They established surveillance from an adjacent property, using military-grade directional microphones and thermal imaging to monitor the meeting inside. Captain Langford arrived later, followed by 4 other officers whom Lang identified as members of Langford's Special Response Team. Inside a private room at the facility, the men spoke freely, unaware that every word was being recorded and transmitted to the team's secure server. Langford congratulated Harlan on his handling of the situation with Ellison, remarking that the SEAL had become problematic with his community improvement initiatives and his questions about recent police activity. Another officer mentioned that Ellison had been investigating the deaths of 2 young black men found with drugs in their systems. Deaths the department had quickly classified as overdoses despite inconsistencies in the toxicology reports. Most unsettling were the references to previous neutralizations of individuals who had challenged the established order in Oakwood Heights. The officers discussed their broader mission of neighborhood preservation and the importance of maintaining the community's traditional values, language that barely concealed racist ideology behind coded terms and references to property values and crime prevention. As the meeting concluded, Captain Langford reminded them that they had allies in positions of authority who shared their vision for the future of Norfolk. The nature of those allies was not specified, but the confidence with which Langford mentioned protection from legal and political consequences suggested connections extending far beyond the local police department. With this information streaming to Harrington, the team's immediate priority shifted to securing Darius's safety. Lang accessed the hospital's security camera feeds just as Torin, monitoring from the van, identified 3 men entering through a service entrance. They wore maintenance uniforms but moved with the deliberate efficiency of tactical training. Their path through the building led directly toward the intensive care unit where Darius remained under medical care. The team had only moments to prevent the murder of their brother-in-arms. The team executes an emergency extraction at the precise instant the disguised officers reach Darius's room. In a silent yet intense confrontation, they neutralize the threat without alerting hospital staff, using their specialized combat skills to subdue the attackers. They secure Darius in an armored medical transport and relocate to a safe house belonging to Dr. Lena Quill, a military trauma surgeon and Darius's former fiancée. The tension between Lena and Darius is palpable. Their engagement ended when Darius chose another deployment over starting a family. Now she must save the life of the man she once loved. As the team discovers a USB drive hidden inside Darius's identification tags, the unit contains evidence that the Guardians were systematically targeting successful black professionals moving into traditionally white neighborhoods. Darius, a decorated war hero, was not a random victim, but specifically chosen to send a message. While Lena stabilizes Darius, he regains consciousness long enough to whisper a name, Senator Harlan Crow, before slipping into cardiac arrest, forcing Lena to employ desperate measures to save his life as the team races to understand the connection to one of Virginia's most powerful politicians. Harrington coordinated the response through encrypted communications, while Voss positioned himself near the ICU entrance. Rojas circled toward the service corridor, and Torin maintained surveillance from the security office he had discreetly accessed using credentials, identifying him as hospital technical support. The 3 disguised men split up, 2 heading directly for Darius's room, while the third positioned himself near the emergency stairwell. Voss intercepted the first man as he rounded the corner, feigning a stumble while balancing a coffee cup and a mobile phone. The momentary distraction allowed Voss to slip a rapid-acting sedative injector into the man's side, a compound developed by the CIA that would render him unconscious while mimicking the symptoms of a sudden drop in blood pressure. When the man staggered and collapsed, Voss supported him, calling for medical help as he dragged him into an empty room. The performance diverted attention from Rojas's simultaneous takedown of the second intruder, executed with the silent efficiency that had made him legendary within the special operations community. The third man, sensing something was wrong when his companions failed to report, moved toward Darius's room with his hand inside the uniform jacket. Torin intercepted him from behind, applying a carotid restraint technique that left him unconscious almost immediately. With all threats neutralized and secured under medical restraints, under the pretext of protecting disoriented patients, the team executed the extraction plan they had prepared. An unmarked medical transport vehicle with proper documentation arrived at the ambulance bay, staffed by 2 operators disguised as civilian medical transport specialists. Darius, still unconscious and connected to life support equipment, was transferred under the supervision of a physician whose credentials identified him as a specialist from Walter Reed, though in reality he was a former SEAL medic now working with naval intelligence. Hospital staff, overwhelmed by emergency arrivals following a highway accident, processed the transfer with minimal oversight. The transport reached a modernist house in the Bay Colony neighborhood of Virginia Beach, a property surrounded by ancient trees with private access to the shoreline. It belonged to Dr. Lena Quill, one of the nation's leading trauma surgeons, and, as the team discovered, Darius's former fiancée. Her expression upon opening the door revealed the complicated history between them. Surprise, professional concern, lingering pain, and something deeper that she quickly masked behind flawless clinical focus. She directed them to a fully equipped medical suite on the ground floor, a space she had designed for her occasional work with Doctors Without Borders. As she assessed Darius's condition, Harrington explained the situation in precise tactical terms. If her hands trembled slightly while checking his vital signs, no one mentioned it. The tension in the room shifted when Lang discovered something unusual in Darius's identification tags. The standard tags appeared normal but contained an almost invisible modification, a high-capacity flash drive embedded within the metal itself. When connected to his secure computer, the drive revealed hundreds of carefully organized files documenting the Guardian's activities throughout Norfolk. Darius had been investigating them independently, compiling evidence of targeted harassment, suspicious deaths classified as accidents or overdoses, and coordinated intimidation of black professionals who had moved into traditionally white neighborhoods. The most disturbing files connected these incidents to similar patterns in 7 other cities, suggesting a well-structured operation rather than isolated pockets of racism. Darius's notes indicated he was preparing to take this evidence to the FBI, which explained why the Guardians had moved against him. While the team processed this information, Lena worked to stabilize Darius, whose condition had worsened during transport. Unexpectedly, his eyes fluttered, focusing with effort on Harrington's face. His lips moved, forming words too soft to hear until Harrington leaned closer. Senator Harlan Crow was all he managed to utter before his eyes rolled back and the heart monitor flatlined. Lena moved with trained urgency, ordering the team to assist as she fought to restart Darius's heart. As they worked to save his life, the name hung in the air. Senator Harlan Crow, the multi-term Virginia senator who chaired the Armed Services Committee and had built his career on support for law enforcement and traditional values. The connection that existed between a powerful senator and a racist police conspiracy had nearly cost Darius his life, and still could if Lena failed to bring him back from the brink. With Darius stabilized but unconscious, the team investigated Senator Crow's relationship to the shooting. They discovered that the senator chaired a committee overseeing military operations and had recently blocked funding for a PTSD program aimed at minority veterans, a cause Darius had publicly championed. Deeper investigation revealed financial ties between Crow, Langford, and Horizon Security, a private military company known for discriminatory hiring practices. The team infiltrated a fundraising gala at Crow's estate, where Commander Harrington overheard the senator speaking of our problem in Norfolk with Langford and Horizon's CEO, Richard Vaughn. When Harrington confronted him privately, Crow claimed ignorance of Darius's shooting but admitted knowledge of community preservation efforts in Norfolk's changing neighborhoods. As Harrington withdrew, he noticed armed guards speaking into their earpieces and realized they had been identified. A high-speed chase began as the team fled the Crow estate with helicopter support closing in rapidly. During the pursuit, Lang hacked Horizon's communication system and discovered they had deployed a tactical team toward the safe house where Darius and Lena remained vulnerable. After intense effort, Lena stabilized Darius's condition, though he remained deeply unconscious. The electrocardiogram showed a stable though weak heart rhythm, and the portable ventilator delivered measured breaths to his private oxygen system. With immediate survival addressed, Lena administered prolonged sedation to keep Darius in a controlled coma, reducing his body's oxygen demand and giving his brain time to recover from the trauma. She explained to the team that the coming period would determine whether he survived, and the following stretch would indicate whether he suffered permanent neurological damage. With Darius temporarily stable under Lena's care and 2 team members standing guard, Harrington led the investigation into Senator Crow's connection to the shooting. Lang discovered that Crow not only chaired the Armed Services Committee, but also a special subcommittee overseeing Veterans Affairs funding. Months earlier, Darius had testified before that subcommittee, advocating for increased mental health resources for minority veterans, presenting statistics showing they received fewer services despite similar or higher rates of PTSD. His testimony had gone viral when he respectfully yet firmly challenged Senator Crow's dismissive questioning about whether cultural factors, rather than systemic inequalities, might explain the disparity. Shortly afterward, Crow had blocked the proposed funding increase, redirecting the money to Horizon Security for a pilot program training police departments in counterterrorism techniques. Rojas, whose expertise in financial intelligence had proven valuable in multiple operations, uncovered a complex web of financial connections between Crow, Captain Langford, and Horizon Security. The senator's blind trust, not so blind under close scrutiny, held significant investments in Horizon's parent company. Langford had received consulting fees from a Horizon subsidiary for training services, payments that coincided with the increased police presence in transforming neighborhoods. Most troubling of all, Horizon had recently won no-bid contracts to provide security services at Norfolk government buildings, despite numerous complaints about discriminatory hiring practices and excessive force by its predominantly white security personnel. The connections were suggestive but not definitive proof of direct involvement in Darius's shooting. To obtain more concrete evidence, Harrington and Voss exploited an opportunity: the annual fundraising gala at Crow's Chesapeake Bay estate. The exclusive event, attended by political donors, military contractors, and law enforcement officials, offered perfect cover for intelligence collection. Harrington, whose position granted him legitimate access to such functions, attended openly while Voss posed as catering staff, allowing him to move invisibly through restricted areas of the property. During the event, Harrington observed Crow conversing closely with Captain Langford and a distinguished-looking man later identified as Richard Vaughn, CEO of Horizon Security and a former CIA operations officer. Their whispered conversation on the terrace included phrases such as, "our problem in Norfolk," and "unfortunate necessity." Though the specific context remained unclear, when Crow separated from the group to greet other guests, Harrington created a private moment with the senator, expressing concern about recent events involving a decorated seal in Norfolk. Crow's reaction was measured yet revealing. His eyes betrayed recognition before his political mask regained control. He denied knowledge of any specific shooting, but acknowledged awareness of community preservation efforts in Norfolk's transforming neighborhoods. His careful phrasing and deliberate omission of details triggered Harrington's deception detection instincts, honed by years of high-stakes operations. When Harrington returned to the main reception, he noticed security personnel speaking urgently into their earpieces, their gazes tracking his every movement through the crowd. At the same time, Voss sent an alert over the secure channel. Horizon security staff were accessing the estate's surveillance system, reviewing footage of Harrington's conversation with Crow. Their cover had been compromised. The team executed its prearranged extraction plan. Harrington exited through the main entrance while Voss slipped out through the service area. They rendezvoused at their vehicle parked in an auxiliary lot near the estate's perimeter, only to find themselves surrounded by black SUVs bearing private security markings. What followed was a high-speed chase along the narrow coastal roads leading away from the estate. Harrington's evasive driving, perfected during hostile extractions across 3 continents, kept them beyond immediate reach, but a helicopter appeared overhead, its spotlight tracking the vehicle with professional precision. In the back seat, Lang accessed Horizon's communications through a compact electronic warfare system, small enough to fit in a standard briefcase, yet powerful enough to penetrate most civilian security protocols. What he discovered transformed an already urgent situation into a critical emergency. Horizon had deployed a tactical team toward Lena's house, where Darius lay helpless save for the 2 operators standing guard. The team faced an impossible choice: continue evading their pursuers, or abandon the vehicle to reach the safe house before Horizon's operatives could eliminate Darius and anyone protecting him. Racing back to the safe house, the team arrived mere moments before Horizon's mercenaries. They evacuated Darius and Lena just as the assault began, engaging in a firefight that drew the attention of legitimate law enforcement. Body camera footage captured during the confrontation revealed Horizon operatives discussing orders from the senator to eliminate all witnesses as they fled. Lena revealed that Darius had briefly regained consciousness and mentioned Operation Silverback, a classified mission in Somalia where his team discovered American weapons being sold to local warlords. Darius believed someone connected to that operation was linked to the current threat. The team split. Voss and Torin escorted Darius and Lena to a naval vessel at sea where Darius could receive proper medical care, while Harrington, Rojas, and Lang pursued the Operation Silverback connection. They penetrated Horizon's headquarters and discovered that Vaughn had been a CIA operative during the Somalia mission and had personally profited from the illegal arms sales. When Darius's SEAL team had nearly exposed him years earlier, he established connections with white supremacist groups, including police officers, creating a network designed to protect his operations and eliminate threats. As they downloaded the evidence, alarms activated. Security cameras showed tactical teams surrounding the building, led by Captain Langford himself. Trapped inside Horizon's headquarters, the team found an unexpected ally in Rebecca Hale, Vaughn's executive assistant, who had been gathering evidence of Horizon's illegal activities after her brother, a black naval officer, died under suspicious circumstances. She helped them escape through underground tunnels, while Horizon security and corrupt officers searched the building. Meanwhile, aboard the naval vessel, Darius regained consciousness and revealed the full truth to Voss and Torin. Senator Crow had served as the intelligence liaison during Operation Silverback and helped cover up Vaughn's illegal arms sales in exchange for campaign funding. The operation had specifically targeted African nations, exploiting racial prejudices that assumed authorities would not thoroughly investigate crimes against black communities. When Darius recognized Vaughn at a veterans event months earlier, he began investigating, unknowingly triggering his enemy's response. At Horizon headquarters, as Harrington, Rojas, and Lang escaped with Rebecca, they were confronted by Officer Harlan. During the confrontation, Harlan revealed that Langford and Vaughn had discovered Darius's location on the naval vessel and had sent a team of former Special Forces operatives. Before they could warn their teammates, an explosion separated the group, and Lang was captured by Harlan. With tactical teams securing stairwells and elevators, the team prepared for a potentially lethal confrontation in Vaughn's executive suite. Their options narrowed further when building security activated emergency protocols, locking down floors and disabling regular roof access. As they calculated increasingly desperate escape scenarios, an unexpected development changed the situation. The door to the executive office opened, revealing Rebecca Hale, who had remained in the building working late. Instead of raising the alarm, she quickly closed the door behind her and spoke with urgent clarity. She knew who they were and why they were there, and she wanted to help them escape. Rebecca explained that she had been gathering evidence against Vaughn since the suspicious death of her brother, Lieutenant Commander Terrence Hale, a black naval officer who had served as military liaison during Operation Silverback. His death, ruled a suicide despite contradictory evidence, occurred shortly after he began asking questions about discrepancies in weapons inventories. Rebecca had accepted the executive assistant position at Horizon precisely to investigate her brother's death, spending an extended period carefully documenting Vaughn's activities while maintaining her cover as an efficient but unremarkable employee. She had compiled her own evidence, stored on encrypted drives hidden in her apartment, that corroborated many of the same connections the team had uncovered. Most critically for the immediate situation, she knew the maintenance tunnels connecting the building to adjacent structures, originally designed for steam pipes and electrical conduits, later expanded during recent renovations to accommodate fiber optic cables. The tunnels, accessible through a maintenance room on an upper floor, would allow them to evade the security teams converging on their position. Following Rebecca's guidance, they navigated service areas normally invisible to the building's executives. While Horizon security and corrupt officers methodically searched the upper floor offices, the team descended through the building's hidden infrastructure. Rebecca's knowledge proved invaluable not only for their escape, but for understanding Vaughn's operation. She explained that the Guardians had begun as Vaughn's personal security network, but evolved into something more insidious, when he recognized the potential to exploit racial tensions to advance his business interests. By positioning his company as the solution to urban instability that his own operatives helped provoke, Vaughn had secured lucrative contracts with municipalities throughout Virginia and neighboring states. Meanwhile, aboard the USS Monterey, Darius Ellison had once again defied medical expectations by regaining consciousness. Though weakened by his wounds and the subsequent cardiac arrest, his mind remained clear enough to provide Voss and Torren the critical context they needed. Senator Crow, he explained, had served as the interagency liaison during Operation Silverback, using his position on the Armed Services Committee to facilitate cooperation between agencies. During that operation, Crow discovered Vaughn's illegal arms sales, but, rather than expose the scheme, leveraged the information to secure campaign funding through a network of shell companies and dark money groups. The partnership between them expanded when they recognized mutual interests in domestic politics. Vaughn's security contracts benefited from Crow's tough-on-crime legislation, while the senator's political position was reinforced by urban unrest that conveniently occurred before elections. They specifically targeted African nations for the illegal arms sales, exploiting the racial prejudice that assumed authorities would not thoroughly investigate crimes against black communities. They applied the same cynical calculation on American soil, relying on the fact that police violence against black citizens rarely resulted in significant consequences for the officers involved. When Darius recognized Vaughn at a Veterans Appreciation event months earlier, he did not immediately connect him to Operation Silverback. Only when he began investigating the police harassment in his neighborhood and noticed Horizon Security's involvement did the connection become clear. His subsequent investigation into Vaughn and Crow had unknowingly triggered both men's response, leading to the shooting intended to silence him permanently. Back in the tunnels beneath Horizon headquarters, Harrington, Rojas, Lang, and Rebecca reached an intersection where several passages led to adjacent buildings. As they prepared to separate to reduce the risk of capture, Officer Harlan and two Horizon security operatives intercepted them. In the confrontation that followed, Harlan revealed critical information. Langford and Vaughn had discovered Darius's location on the naval vessel and had sent a team of former Special Forces operatives to eliminate him and anyone protecting him. Before Harrington could warn his teammates aboard the ship, an explosive charge detonated, collapsing a section of tunnel between them. In the chaos, Lang was separated from the group and captured by Harlan, while Harrington, Rojas, and Rebecca were forced to continue their escape by an alternate route, unable to contact their companions and facing an imminent attack at sea. Voss and Torren detected approaching vessels and prepared defensive positions, while Darius, still weak but determined, insisted on helping. The attacking force, led by Vaughn himself, boarded the vessel using specialized maritime tactics. A brutal close-quarters battle erupted in the ship's narrow corridors, with Darius demonstrating why he had earned his reputation as a SEAL despite his wounds. Meanwhile, Harrington and Rojas, aided by Rebecca, seized a Coast Guard helicopter to reach the vessel. Lang, interrogated by Langford, managed to overpower him and escape, securing vital evidence from Langford's vehicle before heading to the harbor. As the battle aboard reached its climax, Vaughn cornered Darius and revealed his ultimate plan: to use Horizon to militarize police departments across the United States, specifically targeting diverse neighborhoods under the pretext of maintaining order. The racist ideology was merely a recruitment tool for a profit-driven enterprise. Vaughn shot Darius again before Voss intervened, unleashing a desperate struggle that ended with Vaughn falling overboard. When reinforcements arrived, including the helicopter carrying Harrington and Rojas, the team believed they had prevailed until a submarine surfaced nearby and multiple tactical teams deployed, overwhelming their position aboard the USS Monterey. Voss received the first alert about the approaching vessels through the ship's radar system. 3 high-speed boats approaching from the southwest, maintaining formation and radio silence, presented an unmistakable tactical profile. With minimal naval personnel aboard due to the training exercise, Voss and Torren prepared defensive positions with the assistance of the ship's duty officer, who activated security protocols while attempting to contact naval command. The vessels ignored all hails and warning signals, confirming their hostile intent. Darius Ellison, despite his precarious medical condition and Lena's vehement objections, insisted on participating in the defensive preparations. Unable to stand without assistance, he directed the placement of available personnel from a wheelchair on the bridge, his tactical acuity intact despite his physical state. He correctly anticipated that the attackers would attempt to board from multiple points simultaneously, using the vessel's size against the defenders by forcing them to divide their scarce resources. When the assault began, it demonstrated the precision and coordination of professional operators. The attacking force, composed of 17 men equipped with military-grade weapons and night vision devices, used grappling hooks and climbing equipment to board the vessel at 4 different points. Their communications, intercepted by the ship's security systems, revealed that Vaughn himself was directing the operation, leading his teams with the confidence of someone accustomed to command. The battle that followed transformed the ship's narrow corridors and compartmented spaces into a brutal, close-quarters combat environment. Voss and Torin, drawing on years of special operations experience, coordinated with the naval personnel to create bottlenecks and layered defensive positions. Despite the attackers' numerical advantage, the confined spaces prevented them from effectively leveraging their superiority, allowing the defenders to engage them under conditions that favored disciplined resistance over brute force. As the fighting intensified, Darius demonstrated why he had earned his reputation within the SEAL community. Unable to join the physical combat, he coordinated the defense from the ship's communications center, anticipating the attackers' movements and directing responses with almost supernatural precision. His intimate knowledge of the vessel's structure and security protocols transformed what should have been an overwhelming assault into a costly, prolonged engagement for the invaders. Meanwhile, Harrington and Rojas, with Rebecca's help, had managed to take control of a Coast Guard helicopter through a combination of Harrington's authority and an unexpected connection of Rebecca's. Her cousin was a Coast Guard lieutenant at the Norfolk station. They pushed the helicopter to its limits in a desperate race to reach their teammates before Vaughn's forces completed their mission. Lang, separated from the team and captured by Officer Harlan, was being interrogated in a police vehicle heading toward the harbor. Captain Langford, supervising the interrogation, made the critical error of underestimating Lang's capabilities despite his apparent restraints. When Langford stepped aside to communicate with Vaughn, Lang executed a counter-custody technique that allowed him to dislocate his thumb, slip free of the bindings, and incapacitate Harlan. In the struggle that followed, he not only freed himself but also secured Langford's phone and laptop, which contained vital evidence about the conspiracy as a whole. Appropriating a civilian vehicle, Lang followed the route Langford had intended toward the harbor, where he found a police boat preparing to depart. The confrontation aboard the Monterey reached its climax when Vaughn, frustrated by his team's inability to secure the vessel quickly, personally led an advance toward the infirmary where he believed Darius was being treated. Instead, he found Darius in the adjacent corridor, supported by Lena but gripping a sidearm with unyielding determination. In the confrontation that followed, Vaughn revealed his ultimate plan. Horizon Security had positioned itself to capitalize on federal initiatives aimed at militarizing police departments across the United States. By fueling racial tensions and creating the perception of urban threats, Vaughn had manufactured demand for his company's services and equipment. The focus on diverse neighborhoods was not merely ideological but strategic, generating cycles of confrontation and response that produced ever greater profit opportunities. Racism, Vaughn explained with icy pragmatism, was simply a useful tool for recruiting and motivating certain elements within law enforcement, a means to his financial ends rather than a primary motivation. As Vaughn spoke, Voss flanked through a maintenance passage, preparing to neutralize the threat. Vaughn, detecting the movement, fired at Darius, striking him in the shoulder before Voss could intervene. The struggle that followed between Voss and Vaughn ended with both men crashing through a damaged railing and falling overboard into the churning Atlantic. With Vaughn presumed lost at sea and the remaining attackers neutralized or in retreat, the defenders appeared to have prevailed. The arrival of the helicopter carrying Harrington and Rojas reinforced that impression of victory, as did Lang's approach in the captured police launch, bringing the evidence secured from Langford's vehicle. The team's relief proved premature. As they regrouped on the main deck, preparing to secure the vessel and tend to the wounded, the dark water off the starboard side erupted as a submarine surfaced. The vessel, bearing no national markings but displaying the unmistakable design of a privately modified military submarine, discharged multiple tactical teams from hatches along the hull. The defenders, exhausted from the previous engagement and nearly out of ammunition, found themselves suddenly overwhelmed as more than 30 fresh operators advanced toward the Monterey in rigid inflatable boats. Their hard-won victory transformed in seconds into a desperate last stand against an enemy whose resources far exceeded any expectation. Captured and transported to a Horizon training facility in a remote location, the team confronted Vaughn, who had survived his fall, and Senator Crow. They revealed that their operation extended beyond Norfolk, reaching 12 major cities with financial interests in privatized prisons filled with minority inmates. Their business model depended on stoking racial tensions and criminalizing black communities. As they prepared to execute the team and present them as extremists, Long revealed that he had activated a live transmission through a military satellite channel monitored by SEAL headquarters. Everything Vaughn and Crow had said was being recorded and transmitted to naval intelligence and multiple news organizations. Enraged, Vaughn ordered immediate execution, but the facility was suddenly surrounded by legitimate FBI agents and military personnel. In the firefight that erupted between the corrupt officers and the federal agents, the team managed to free themselves. In the chaos, Vaughn escaped along with Crow and several loyalists, leaving Langford and Harlan to be arrested. Harrington received word that simultaneous raids were occurring across the country, exposing the entire network. Victory seemed complete until they learned that Vaughn had one final contingency. A team of mercenaries had taken hostages at a community center in Darius's neighborhood, demanding safe passage in exchange for civilian lives. Overwhelmed by superior forces and facing attackers with renewed supplies and equipment, the team had no choice but to surrender or risk the lives of the naval personnel aboard the Monterey. They chose to surrender under the condition that the wounded, including Darius and Lena, would receive medical attention. Vaughn, who had been rescued from the water by one of his tactical teams, accepted the terms while making clear the concession would be temporary. Disarmed and separated from their wounded companions, Harrington, Rojas, Voss, Torren, and Lang were transported by submarine to the Virginia coast, then transferred to unmarked vehicles that carried them to their final destination, a Horizon training facility situated deep inland, surrounded by thousands of acres that isolated it from public view and civilian oversight. The complex, originally built as a corporate retreat center, had been converted into a tactical training facility for Horizon's special response teams and selected police units. Its remote location and extensive security measures made it ideal for activities requiring absolute discretion, including, as the team now discovered, interrogations and planned executions of individuals who threatened Vaughn's operation. In the facility's main conference room, transformed into an improvised tribunal, Vaughn and Senator Crow explained the true scope of their enterprise. What had begun as opportunistic exploitation of illegal arms sales had evolved into a sophisticated operation spanning beyond Norfolk to 12 major East Coast cities. Vaughn's companies provided security services, equipment, and training to police departments while simultaneously investing in privatized prisons that housed the predominantly minority inmates arrested by those same police forces. Crow's political influence guaranteed favorable legislation and convenient regulatory environments, while his connections to judicial appointments helped maintain high conviction rates and lengthy sentences that kept the private prisons full. Their business model depended fundamentally on stoking racial tensions and criminalizing black communities, creating a self-sustaining cycle of fear, repression, incarceration, and profit. The statistics they cited with indifference were staggering. Approximately 20,000 black Americans incarcerated through their systems of influence, generating annual revenues exceeding $100 million. The human cost, measured in destroyed lives and devastated communities, formed no part of their calculations, except insofar as it affected their bottom line. As Vaughn detailed his operation with the casual confidence of someone who believed himself beyond accountability, he explained his plans for the SEAL team. They would be executed and found with evidence suggesting they had formed a radical extremist group planning attacks against law enforcement. The narrative would be amplified by sympathetic media and aligned political figures, creating justification for further police militarization and more aggressive tactics in minority communities. The timing was particularly advantageous, just before a major congressional vote on national security funding that included significant provisions for strengthening domestic law enforcement. As Vaughn concluded his explanation and signaled his security team to prepare the executions, Lang spoke for the first time since their capture. With calm precision, he explained that before their surrender, he had activated a specialized communication protocol, establishing a live transmission through a military satellite channel monitored directly by SEAL headquarters. Everything Vaughn and Crow had said over the preceding period had been recorded and transmitted in real time to Naval Intelligence, the Pentagon's Inspector General's Office, the FBI's Public Corruption Unit, and several national news organizations whose integrity the team trusted. The technology, developed to document war crimes in conflict zones, was designed to be undetectable by standard electronic countermeasures. Vaughn's reaction shifted from disbelief to rage as Lang detailed the specific recipients of the transmission and the redundant systems, ensuring the evidence could not be contained. Crow, whose political instincts immediately grasped the implications, attempted to claim his comments had been misinterpreted or taken out of context, initiating the damage control that would become his final political act. Before Vaughn could order their immediate execution, the facility's perimeter alarms activated. Security monitors showed multiple vehicles approaching along every access road, black FBI SUVs accompanied by military vehicles carrying personnel from Naval Special Warfare Command. The transmission had fulfilled its purpose, bringing legitimate federal authority to confront the corruption Lang had exposed. Vaughn, refusing to accept defeat, ordered his security team to eliminate the prisoners and prepare defensive positions. The resulting chaos, as loyalties fractured and survival instincts overrode organizational discipline, allowed the team to free themselves from their restraints and secure weapons from distracted guards. A firefight erupted inside the facility between corrupt officers loyal to Vaughn's operation and those who recognized the futility of resisting federal authorities. In the confusion, Vaughn escaped along with Crow and several loyalists through a system of hidden tunnels beneath the facility, leaving Langford, Harlan, and others to face arrest. As FBI agents secured the complex and medical personnel tended to the wounded, Harrington received word that the evidence transmitted from the facility had triggered simultaneous raids across 7 states, targeting police departments, private security firms, correctional facilities, and financial institutions connected to Vaughn's network. The scale of the operation and the clarity of the evidence suggested the entire conspiracy would be exposed, with hundreds of arrests expected in the days ahead. Victory seemed complete until an FBI agent delivered urgent news. Vaughn had activated a final contingency plan. A team of mercenaries composed of former military contractors loyal to Vaughn had taken 38 hostages at the Oakwood Heights Community Center in Darius's neighborhood. They demanded safe passage for Vaughn, Crow, and their inner circle to leave the country, threatening to execute hostages if their demands were not met. Most disturbing was that the community center was hosting an after-school program when the mercenaries arrived, meaning 23 of the hostages were children between the ages of 6 and 14. The final confrontation unfolds at the community center where Vaughn holds 30 hostages, the majority of them children attending the program. With FBI negotiators at an impasse, Darius proposes an unorthodox solution, exchanging himself for the hostages, appealing to Vaughn's ego and his desire for revenge. Against medical advice and his team's objections, Darius approaches the building alone, barely able to walk. Inside, he confronts Vaughn and Crow, keeping them occupied while his team executes a coordinated infiltration plan. When the tension reaches its peak, Vaughn reveals his true motivation: resentment that black servicemen like Darius achieved positions he believes they do not deserve. In an unexpected twist, several hostages reveal themselves as undercover SEAL operators who had been monitoring Darius's neighborhood since the shooting. The resulting operation frees all civilians without casualties, though Vaughn takes his own life rather than face justice. Senator Crow is arrested along with police officers and officials across multiple states. In the aftermath, Darius receives the nation's highest civilian honor and establishes a foundation to support minority communities affected by police violence. The most powerful moment comes when previously hostile neighbors witness Darius's heroism and confront their own prejudices, generating unprecedented unity within the community. The SEAL team, forever changed, establishes a covert oversight organization that monitors police conduct nationwide, ensuring that what happened to Darius becomes a turning point, rather than simply another statistic in America's ongoing struggle for racial justice. FBI crisis negotiators established communication with the hostage-takers, while tactical units secured a perimeter around the Oakwood Heights Community Center. Initial conversations proved unproductive, with the mercenaries demonstrating professional discipline and clear chains of command that complicated standard negotiation tactics. Their leader, identified as former Delta Force operator Quinn Brandt, communicated with cold efficiency, reiterating the demands for safe passage for Vaughn and establishing credibility by describing in precise detail how they would execute hostages if those demands were not met. Satellite imagery and thermal scans confirmed the presence of 26 armed individuals inside the building, with the hostages concentrated in the main gymnasium. Local police established a command center 2 blocks from the site, where Harrington's team joined federal authorities to develop response options. The structural characteristics of the community center, concrete walls, limited access points, and open interior spaces with minimal cover, created a tactical nightmare for any traditional assault attempt. Any direct action would likely result in significant casualties among the hostages, especially the children. Hours after the standoff began, with negotiations stalled and the execution deadline approaching, Darius Ellison arrived at the command center. Against medical recommendations and still needing assistance to walk, he had discharged himself upon learning of the situation. His appearance shocked the team, not only for his determination to participate despite his wounds, but for the clarity of his proposed solution. Darius would offer himself in exchange for the hostages, appealing to Vaughn's ego and his desire for revenge. The proposal met immediate resistance from both his teammates and the federal authorities, who correctly assessed that it would place him in extreme danger with limited tactical advantage. Darius countered their objections with strategic logic. While the negotiators focused on Brandt, the true target should be Vaughn, whose personal vendetta against Darius could override his tactical judgment. If Vaughn believed he could witness and even personally participate in Darius's execution, he was likely to accept the exchange without recognizing the opportunities it would create for a coordinated response. After intense debate, a modified version of Darius's plan was approved. He would approach the community center alone, offering himself in exchange for the child hostages, while his team executed a coordinated infiltration using the building's maintenance tunnels, which Vaughn's group had overlooked in their hasty occupation. Remote surveillance would monitor the exchange, with assault teams prepared to intervene the moment the children were safe. Against his team's persistent objections, and with evident physical effort, Darius approached the main entrance of the community center, unarmed and with his hands visible. The psychological impact of his appearance, his weakened physical state contrasted with the unyielding determination in his bearing, created a powerful image that would later feature prominently in media coverage of the event. Inside the gymnasium, Darius confronted Vaughn and Crow directly. Vaughn's surprise at seeing Darius still alive quickly transformed into calculated cruelty when he recognized the propagandistic value of executing a decorated SEAL on video. While Vaughn gloated over his apparent victory, Darius kept him talking, extracting his motivations and plans as the team advanced toward their positions through the building's infrastructure. The dialogue between them revealed Vaughn's true motivation. Beneath his profit-driven operations lay a deep resentment toward black servicemen like Darius who had achieved positions he believed they did not deserve. His exploitation of racism was not merely pragmatic, but rooted in his own prejudices, particularly against black men who had succeeded in elite military units, representing the pinnacle of American martial achievement. When the tension reached its peak and Vaughn prepared for a public execution, the most dramatic moment of the confrontation occurred. 4 of the supposed hostages, 2 teachers and 2 parents attending the after-school program, revealed themselves as undercover SEAL operators who had been monitoring Darius's neighborhood since the shooting. They had been inside the community center when the mercenaries arrived and maintained their cover throughout the takeover, positioning themselves strategically among the hostages. Their revelation, coordinated with the team's entry through the maintenance areas and the FBI's breach at selected points, created sufficient confusion to allow them to disarm the nearest mercenaries and shield the children from potential crossfire. The resulting operation demonstrated the difference between Vaughn's hired contractors and operators with the specialized training and experience of the Navy SEALs. Despite being outnumbered, the coordinated assault neutralized the threat with surgical precision, prioritizing above all the safety of the hostages. When Vaughn realized his defeat was imminent, he attempted to use Senator Crow as a human shield while retreating toward a secondary exit. Cornered and refusing to surrender, Vaughn chose to end his own life rather than face justice, leaving Crow to be detained by federal agents. The aftermath brought profound changes across multiple domains. Senator Crow faced federal charges related to corruption, conspiracy, civil rights violations, and complicity in multiple homicides. His cooperation with prosecutors led to the identification and arrest of officials in 7 states, including 42 police officers, 17 prison administrators, and 28 elected officials who had facilitated various aspects of Vaughn's operation. Darius Ellison received the nation's highest civilian distinction for his courage and commitment to justice, presented in a White House ceremony that drew international media coverage. Even more significant to him was the creation of the Ellison Foundation for Community Justice, dedicated to supporting minority communities affected by police violence and providing legal resources to confront systemic discrimination within law enforcement. The foundation, initially funded by contributions from across the military community, rapidly grew into a nationally recognized advocacy organization with chapters in 12 cities. Perhaps the most powerful transformation occurred within Darius's own neighborhood. Residents who had previously regarded one another with suspicion, influenced by manufactured tensions and deliberate police provocations, witnessed Darius's heroism and sacrifice firsthand. His willingness to risk his life not only for those who supported him, but for everyone in the community, regardless of prior attitudes toward him, sparked difficult yet necessary conversations about prejudice and unity. The neighborhood that had been targeted for manipulation because of its demographic changes became a model of community solidarity, developing citizen police oversight committees and collaborative approaches to public safety that reduced crime while strengthening trust. For the SEAL team, the experience profoundly transformed their understanding of the threats facing the United States. They had trained to confront enemies abroad, only to discover equally dangerous adversaries exploiting divisions within their own country. With the discreet support of senior military leadership, they established a covert oversight organization dedicated to monitoring police conduct nationwide, intervening when necessary to prevent abuses of power directed at minority communities. Their initiative, though never officially acknowledged, ensured that what happened to Darius Ellison became a turning point in America's ongoing struggle for racial justice, rather than simply another statistic within a tragically familiar pattern. Reflecting on Darius's journey from victim to hero, we may ask ourselves uncomfortable yet necessary questions about our own communities. Have we witnessed instances of racial discrimination within law enforcement that we have ignored or minimized? Are there systemic problems in our society that need to be confronted with the same courage Darius demonstrated? This story, though fictional, reflects realities that many Americans face today. If it resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective matters in this ongoing conversation about justice and equality. If you found value in this narrative, like the video, subscribe for more content that examines challenging social themes. and share it with those who might benefit from this perspective. Thank you for your attention to this story, and I hope it inspires meaningful dialogue about the America we are and the America we aspire to become.